Learning outcomes. After studying this module, you shall be able to know the meaning of public good, understand the Simonson's model, know about Musgrave's model. Introduction. In economic theory, a good is defined in the range of private good to public good on the basis of its rivalry and excludability. The non-rivalness property holds when use of a unit of a good by the consumer does not diminishes the benefit to another consumer using the same unit of the good. Thus, there is jointness in the consumption of the good. Non-rivalness implies that the opportunity cost of the marginal user is zero. Some classic examples are radio broadcast. A person listening to broadcast does not diminishes ability of other user to benefit from the same broadcast. Air quality. It is a power plant if a power plant reduces its sulfur dioxide emissions, all consumers in the area exposed to the plant emissions enjoy an increase in the air quality. The non-excludable property holds when it is not possible to exclude others from consuming the good once it is produced. This is fundamentally a question of establishing effective property rights. Whether a good is excludable or non-excludable is a function of the cost of setting up and enforcing a private property right to the good. Classic examples of non-excludable goods are street light, air to breathe, and others. A private good, as defined in the theory, is rival and excludable. This simply means that a private good produced for the market will diminish in number as one person consumes it. The leftover for the other consumers to consume diminishes. It is excludable in the sense that the price built up for the private good can exclude some consumers from consuming it, especially when they are deemed to be relatively expensive. This property of private good is established from the fact that property rights are well defined in the case of such goods. The best examples of pure public good are clothes traded, shoes sold, etc. An impure private good is the one that is either rival but not excludable or non-rival but excludable. The example of former is congested road and that of latter is toll-free highway. Public good, on the other hand, are the goods that are the one that are non-excludable and non-rival. The best example of a pure public good is national defense. No citizen is excluded from the service of national defense, and it is neither rival in the sense that its services to one citizen does not diminishes its service to other citizens. A public good has such characteristics due to the fact that the property rights are not made on such goods. Since property rights are not defined, the market fails to make a market price of the good that can be charged from each consumer of the public good. In the theory of public good, I repeat, marginal willingness to pay for the good from the consumer is difficult to calculate. In general theory of demand and supply, equilibrium price of the good and hence the equilibrium quantity to be traded in the market is determined where demand is equal to supply. This is the simple case of the provision of a private good. The demand curve perfectly depicts how much a consumer is willing to pay for different quantities of the private good. Since competitive prices are achieved, the allocation is Pareto efficient as well. But in the case of public good, it is difficult to determine the willingness the consumers are willing to pay for different quantities of the public good because public good is a joint good. If it is provided for everyone as it is non-excludable, and since it is not excludable, people tend to free ride on others. Hence, in the provision of public good, there is vertical summation of marginal benefits to arrive at an equilibrium quantity, rather than vertical summation as done in the case of the provision of private good. The existence of public goods then leads to a failure of competitive equilibrium to be efficient. Such failure implies a potential role for the state in the public good provision to overcome the failure of the market. Let us now discuss the Samuelson's model. The formal analysis of public goods began with Samuelson, who derived the rule depicting efficient levels of provision of public goods. He tried to explain the efficient provision of pure public good and the role of the government in its provision. The rule for efficient provision is typically called the Samuelson rule. The following analysis will derive the Samuelson rule for a pure public good. Talking about pure public good, to derive the efficiency rule for a pure public good, it is assumed that there is available a single public good and initially that disposable is not possible. The latter assumption implies all households must consume a quantity of public good equal to its supply. The extension to many public goods is simple. The economy consists of H households indexed from 1 to H. Each household has a utility function UH which is equal to VH, which is a function of XH and G, where XH is the consumption of household H of the private good and G is the supply of public good. The fact that total supply G appears in all households' utility function indicates that the public good is pure. It is assumed that the combination of XH from 1 to H and G that the economy can produce are constrained by production possibilities. The implicit representation of the production set is written f, which is a function of x and g, is less than or equal to 0, where x is equal to summation from 1 to h xh. To characterize the set of Pareto efficient allocation, the government chooses xh and g to maximize the utility level of each household, constrained by the requirement that the household 2 to h obtain given utility levels and by production possibilities. Varying the given utility levels for household 2 to h traces out the set of Pareto efficient allocations. The Lagrangian for this maximization problem can be written as Lagrangian is equal to V prime, which is a function of x prime and g, plus summation h, which is from 2 to h, UH, which is again a function of XH, G minus UH, minus lambda times F, which is a function of X and G, where UH is the utility level that must be achieved by households 2 to H. Assuming that the specified utility levels can be reached simultaneously, the necessary condition describing the choice of a component XH is delta Lagrangian upon delta XIH is equal to UH delta UH upon delta XI minus lambda times delta F upon delta XI equal to 0, H tending from 1 to H, with mu H equal to 1 for H equal to 1. At an optimum, the above equation holds for all I equal to 1 to n. For the choice of the level of public good forming the Lagrangian, the optimizing with respect to G gives delta L upon delta G is equal to summation H from 1 to H UH delta UH upon delta G minus lambda delta F upon delta Xi equal to 0, which is marginal rate of substitution between the public good and the ith private good for the hth household. The right hand side of the above equation is the marginal rate of transformation between the public good and the private good I. The above equation can thus be written as summation h from 1 to h MRS Ig to h is equal to MRT Ig. This equation is the Samuelson rule, which states that Pareto efficient allocation of public good occurs when the marginal rate of transformation between the public good and each private good is equated to the sum over all households of the marginal rate of substitution. That is, MRS Ijh is equal to MRT Ij for all I, J and H. The difference between optimal allocation of public good and private good occurs due to the fact that an extra unit of public good increases the utility of all households, so that the social benefit of this additional unit is found by summing the marginal benefit measured by MRS to individual households. At an optimum, this is equated to the marginal cost given by the marginal rate of transformation. In contrast, an extra unit of private good only increases the welfare of its single recipient, and an optimum occurs when marginal benefits are equal across households and to the marginal cost. 2 points must be noted in the interpretation of this result. First, although non-excludability has been adopted as a defining characteristic of a pure public good, it played no role in derivation of Simonson rule. In fact, the optimal level of provision is not dependent on the degree of excludability. Instead, excludability is only relevant for determining feasible provision mechanisms. Secondly, although the Simonson rule is simple, attention should be given to the fact in believing that it can be easily implemented. In order to derive the rule, it was assumed that the government had complete control over the allocation of resources. Equivalently, the government could employ lump sum taxation to redistribute income and finance the provision of public good. Moving on to the Musgrave's model, Musgrave has recognized three essential roles of government in an economy, that is, allocation, distribution and stabilization. Allocation role of the government is to allocate resources for optimal production of the public good, which would not be provided efficiently by private players in the society. The distributive role of the government is to ensure optimal distribution of the income, wealth, which might not be in the market provision. This role ensures equitable distribution of the efficiency which is required in a society. The stabilization function of the government ensures that macroeconomic variables of employment, output and prices are being produced and maintained at stable rate. This arena of the role of the government in macroeconomics, it is hence more of fiscal policy for an economy rather than only a theory of public finance. Thus, the public theory deals with the allocation and distributive role of the government. Under Musgrave's model, policies to adjust the inter-individual or household distribution, I repeat, individual or household distribution of nation's income and wealth, that is distribution function, also accrued to the center. This is because full mobility of both the rich and the poor between subnational entities makes it impossible for such government to have more generous policy towards the poor than others if it has to finance these policies itself, be it only at the margin. Either the poor will move in, overloading the expenditure side, and thus requiring higher taxes, or the rich will move out, starving the revenue side, or both will happen simultaneously. A subnational government could have pro-rich policies to encourage out-migration of the poor, but this would be undesirable from an overall allocative perspective. This would lead to segregation and thus to a reduction in externalities that emerge from mixing in a given territory various groups. However, there are costs associated with mobility. In small countries like Belgium, differences in ethno-linguistic religious characteristics between subnational entities could reduce mobility from one jurisdiction to another. In large countries, distance and its associated cost may be barrier to mobility even if there are no differences in these characteristics. Thus, it is conceivable to have some income distribution at subnational level. Musgrave's particular interpretation in the theory of public finance is regarding the non-excludability of the members. Non-exclusion from the consumption of a public good causes free riding to occur, which lead to preference evaluation problems. This first instance of market failure can combine with the second one. When goods are non-rival, their free availability to everyone, made possible only through public provision, is socially desirable. In retrospect, it is obvious this policy recommendation rests on the assumption of benevolent government. Under Musgrave's model, policies to adjust the inter-individual or household distribution of a nation's income and wealth, that is the distribution function, also comes under the function of the center. This is because the movement of poor and rich between the subnational grounds makes it impossible for one government to have more generous policies towards poor than others if it has to finance these policies itself. The poor will move in, overloading the number of poor, and this would be undesirable for migration of the poor. But this would lead to segregation and thus an overall allocative perspective. The costs associated with the movement with mobility could reduce mobility between the jurisdiction. The efficiency argument of the allocative policy is the traditional for the subnational rule. Efficient provision of public good requires only subnational activity. In that, it is not the case. I repeat, indeed, that is not the case. Some social goods such as national defense, public health, courts, etc. are geographically limited but have national-wide benefit. The recognition that allocative function is an intergovernmental responsibility applies not only to broad functions of services but also within its functions. Education is a good example here. A nation as a whole, I repeat, a nation as a whole has a strong interest in a well-educated population as it does the locality where the service is provided. There are 4 criteria for assigning functional responsibilities across the types of government. First, economies of scale varies across goods and services. Economies of scale are significant in broadcasting where additional unit per viewer drops, when number of viewers of a given program doubles but negligible in the provision of individual health services such as surgical treatment. The existence of economies of scale constitutes an argument for a regional government to provide a particular good or service. Second, heterogeneity of preferences and circumstances. Groups living in different parts of the country may display strong heterogeneity of preferences or may face different environment in terms of climate and topography. They may prefer and need different amounts of services and different quality also. Decentralization is appropriate to address these needs if these groups are separated by borders that match those of subnational government. Third, presence of externalities. Negative or positive externality have an impact on the distribution of public goods. Of some activities on one government have important external effects on the individual or business located in other jurisdiction or on other government types, then these activities should be well coordinated among the affected governments. Fourth, emulation, also referred to as competition, which helps increase to introduce best practices in government, requires at least 2 or more units in a given activity. This argument is for decentralization of government activities. Let us now summarize what we have learnt in this module. Paul Samuelson and Richard Musgrave are generally credited with developing the modern theory of public goods. Musgrave gets credit for the common textbook definition of public good, as well as that is non-rival and non-excludable. But Samuelson, the economic theorist par excellence, is credited with formalizing the concept in the Foundations of Economic Analysis and 2 papers on public expenditures, 1954 and 1955. The pure theory of public finance in 1954 is a pure theory in motivation and detail. The article is a mere 2.5 page long. The diagrammatic exposition of a theory of public expenditure in 1955 is what the title indicates, with the aim of making the analysis in the previous article more accessible. Samuelson includes the ethical status of distribution of the good in his analysis by positing an undefined social welfare function that reflects ethical preferences across all possible states of the system. This function is a necessary component of the module, but its determination is not a scientific task of the economist, except in requiring that if one person becomes better off without anyone else becoming worse off, social welfare improves. Richard Musgrave's Principle of Public Finance in 1958 contains the analysis that Samuelson was most concerned to compare and contrast with his own. The points of comparison with Musgrave's were technical matters having to do with the general equilibrium system and its component, social production possibility frontier, individual preference functions for public and private good, and Watsonian social welfare function. But he was also concerned to convey in no uncertain terms his belief that his analysis, which he thought others were grouping towards, revealed that the search for an attainable social Pareto optimal allocation was at a dead end. As he put it in the heading for section, the analysis was an affirmation of doubts.